Hi guys, it's Jen and Jesse.
Hey guys.
Um, we sound really good right now because we have our new mics, but unfortunately, for episode 2, we had some audio issues. Our sound engineer sucks.
Her
That's
name's
me.
also Jessie.
But she's gotten a lot better in the last week. But please just bear with us through this episode. We apologize. We'll probably re-record it at some point, but it had so much good content that we still just wanted to put it out. And this will be the last junky episode, and then we have a really crystal clear one coming your way next week. So yeah, bear with us. Apologies for the bad sound, but hopefully you find something good in it. Thanks so much for listening. Bye, guys. Hi, guys. Welcome back to episode 2 of the Marketing Greenhouse podcast. We made it through the first week. Our sound engineer is still in training. That's me. But we're back and we're ready for round 2, episode 2. Jen, how has your week been?
It's been pretty good. We've been able to work outside more often, which is always my favorite in the summer.
Yeah, you have a higher tolerance for heat than I do.
I just like being outside.
I in my old age have become very picky about weather. I don't know, I think maybe I always was, but I feel like I only like it between like 72 and 78 degrees these days, and anytime else I'm complaining. It's probably not a good habit, but Kyle doesn't complain all winter because he only doesn't like the heat. So like it can be like -30 out and he's like not complaining. They're like 6 days a year. I don't complain about the weather. But such is life. Anyway, what is your high for the week?
Well, my high for the week is that I got to go on a boat this last weekend, which is one of my favorite things to do.
So much fun.
Yeah, but it's also my low for the week because it was for my birthday and almost everyone puked except me.
And you were the only pregnant person on the boat.
This is correct. But it just felt very 2020, 2021. Like it was perfectly planned. Matt planned it as a birthday gift. He did a great job. It was awesome. We went out of Wilmette Harbor, which is fun. We've never done that before. The yacht club there is so cool. The captain was awesome. And then it was just super choppy. And literally one by one, they all turned yellow.
Oh no.
And we had to turn around and come back. I still had a great time.
You're the only one having a good time.
That is correct.
Everyone else was dying. Oh my God. That sucks. I feel like seasickness is so weird because you can never like completely gauge it. Like, some like I've gotten seasick once, but usually I'm totally fine. And so I don't know, it's just such a weird, annoying thing when like you have a nice day planned on a boat and it just gets ruined.
Yes.
Especially when you're the one that should be nauseous because you're pregnant, but
And I have a second low. You shared no questions for today's podcast, so I'm winging it.
I like to surprise Jen. I want her to feel natural and go with the flow. So
I just think it's really important that everyone knows that.
so when I put you on the spot.
Yes.
I love making Jen just like, go with the flow a little bit sometimes. She likes to be super prepared for everything, and I think it's just nice to like have a conversation and keep it natural. Not so much.
People act like just because I'm prepared doesn't mean I'm not flexible. Very flexible. I just like to clearly articulate my thoughts for the people.
The people are gonna love you no matter what.
Okay.
What's my high for the week? I feel like I'm being repetitive, but my birthday's in 2 days.
Well, aren't you one of those people who celebrates for like 10 years?
No, I'm really not. I'm like not a big birthday person. I say that and then I'm like kind of a big birthday person, but I'm really not a huge birthday.
Okay, just so we're clear, Jesse has celebrations planned Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, correct?
Wednesday, I got not like looped into in a bad way, but it's one of my like very good friends' birthdays on Wednesday. And she invited me to birthday dinner, but then I think it was just like, well, why don't we just do a joint? So that's a birthday dinner. And then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we'll be out of town for a minute. And then Saturday evening, yeah, it's a girls' dinner. It's a 30th birthday. I can't drink at any of these, so it's not like a real celebration.
but it'll be fun. No, I'm actually really excited. It'll be a good time. It'll be nice
Yeah.
to take a couple days off. So yeah, that's my high. I think, I don't know, my low is probably celebrating my 30th birthday pregnant. And again, it's not as big of a thing, but I think I just don't feel like myself right now.
Well, it's just inconvenient.
Yeah, it's inconvenient. It's uncomfortable. It's like, yeah. So I don't know. 31's going to be a big year for me. We're going to have a month of celebrations.
This is what I mean.
You got to make up for it. Jen like has no idea how old she is. This is the difference between us. Like every time I'm like, Jen, how old are you? She's like, I don't know.
No, I lost track. I don't know. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah. It's not, again, it's not a big deal, but then it's like, oh my God, I'm 30. And then, kind of becomes a big deal. And then I like forget. I think it's also, I was telling you, it's weird because I can't wrap my head around the fact that it's July.
Yeah.
Like it still feels like March to me. And so it's just weird. Like I only have a couple doctor's appointments left and then I'm having a baby and da da da. Then you're like, yeah. So,
Don't remind me. You're gonna get my anxiety all riled up.
so anyway, I guess that's my high and low. But yeah, no, it's mostly high. I'm excited. I'm also like the youngest in my grade as if we're still in high school, but like I've always been the youngest. So like everyone I know is already 30, like all my friends like turn 30 before me or like turn whatever big age. And so I'm always like the last one. So it's not as much of like a hit, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. So influencers.
Yeah. So this was Jen and I realized like we noticed a pattern that like we were getting so many questions about influencer marketing, and with like small businesses and even larger like businesses, corporations and everything. Like how do you do it? I think it's such a new industry and it's so unique and people are just confused by it. Like I don't know that people really understand it. And so we're actually working on even more like content and potentially a course around this, but we wanted to start off by like giving you guys, I guess, kind of the basics of influencer marketing and just digging into it a bit more. Um, and like kind of giving you like a starting place, like how do I get into it? Like, is it worth it? And answer a couple questions. So yeah, the interesting part about Jen and I is that we both have our own blogs,
Mm-hmm.
and have for quite some time. And so we kind of do both sides of this industry where we, have taken on brand campaigns, as well as like run them from a brand side. And so we have like, I think, interesting insight. And it's one of the reasons why we keep up our own blogs is because we end up like getting more insight into the industry from both sides. And I think it's valuable for our clients.
Well, and I spent 10 years in brand marketing.
Yes. And that. So Jen has like a really in-depth brand side.
So I like totally get it from a business side of things. And I love brand marketing. It's my favorite thing to work in. But then I wanted to work for myself. And so that's why one of the reasons I wanted to build a blog following was so that I could continue to work in brand marketing, but through collaborations and do it for myself.
Right. No, and you have very successfully. And so I don't know. I think like to start with, influencer marketing is so interesting. I think it gets such a bad rap. There's so many like different segments of influencers that I think kind of get lumped into one. I don't know if anyone follows like influencers in the wild. Like it's a very entertaining account, but it's also like, I don't know, it's like a specific niche of like influencers and like what does influencer even mean? Like it's someone with basically like a large following on the internet and has morphed into meaning kind of like whatever people decide to put on it. And I think that that's why it's become so misunderstood is because like people are like, oh, it's frivolous, it's silly, or like people aren't putting any effort into it, or like, you just give someone, I don't even know, a Coke and like they drink it on their stories and then get paid $1,000. And it's a lot more complicated than that. But because I think a lot of people, I don't know if you have any thoughts on the industry getting a bad rep in general.
I think there's bad apples out there. I think it's a combination of there are people who capitalized on the system and the sneaky growth hacks to build
cheating.
To build their quote unquote robust followings, and then they dupe brands into supporting them. And on the flip side, younger brands, I don't like to call things new businesses, I like to call them young brands or young businesses, don't know the ins and outs, and so they do some Googling and they put their best foot forward and they get burned.
Right.
And then they assume it's bad. But there's a science to figuring out who the good influencers are, and it's one of our favorite things to do.
Yeah. I think that's like a big thing, is like, and it's hard because it's like, I don't even want to call it fraud. It's also like there were people that cheated and people that continue to cheat with like following hacks or whatever you want to call it. But then there were also people that, like, if you capitalized at the right time, you still could have built a following that wasn't completely, I don't know if authentic is the right word, or just like invested in you, you know, because it was so easy to grow that like you now have like half your followers don't really care about your content. And so, but at the same time, like the influencer marketing industry isn't going anywhere. Like it's only growing year over year, and the people that are doing it right are only getting more and more money from it, as they should be, because it's valuable. It's like predicted this year that brands are going to spend like $15 billion in the influencer industry, which is a ton of money. And again, I just think it's going to continue going up. And I think that smaller brands should get in on it and find ways to build these partnerships that are valuable for both sides, because I think they're out there.
Yeah, it's absolutely a way to grow your brand if you do it the right way. And you don't always, some people will hate me for saying this, but you don't always have to pay influencers when you're getting started. It depends on what you're offering.
I agree. And I think that that's like a huge thing that's been kind of back and forth, because it's like, I completely see the value in influencers, and there are certain people that absolutely you need to be paying. And so that's fair. You know, there are certain people that like are just way too big to take a pair of leggings or take a pair, you know, some food or whatever it is, like. But then there are some people that are also looking to build, and I think that there are ways where you could add value to each other's businesses, and through partnership. And yeah, it doesn't always have to be this like huge monetary investment if you can find other ways to like be creative with it. So yeah, I think we wanted to like just dive in today a little bit about like how influencers, the partnership is always just going to be like the influencer is there to drive sales, and that is not always the best way to utilize a partnership, because every influencer has different strengths. And I think that most influencers, good influencers, will let you know like where they think they can add value. So yeah, I think there are like 3 big things that influencers can do to help you grow your business. And the first thing is drive awareness. Do you want to talk about, I feel like that's like a big brand thing.
Yes, it's one of the key metrics. So when you're a younger brand, or honestly a brand of any size, it could be as big as Tyson Chicken, there's always an awareness metric that they're trying to hit, because you're trying to drive your household penetration numbers. And as you drive that number up, you need awareness to support it. Traditionally, awareness was from TV and print. And then digital started to come into the picture 10-ish years ago. And it became this black box of social media, which now the new black box is influencers. Because if you capitalize on influencers in the right way, not only can you tap into their audience to get the awareness you want, you're hyper targeting your bullseye target if you pick the right influencer. If you structure your campaign the right way, you can also amplify their content with a media spend. So like I always love when bigger brands, medium or bigger size brands, work with influencers. Like I love working with Tarani. They're one of my favorite brands to work with. And one of the ways in which they structure their campaigns is I publish content, but they then have the rights to amplify it. And when they amplify the content, my blog stats go up and they get to buy whatever reach they wanted to hit to begin with.
Totally. And then that's also not to say that they don't pay well, because I know they do, but like that's a way that you can use like I said, it doesn't always have to be like this massive amount of money, because then that's
Mhm.
like adding value for you. It's adding value for your blog. It's getting your numbers up. It's getting your reach out, you know, and so it's like your content's out there. And so it's a win-win situation for both sides,
Absolutely.
which I think is a really smart and again underutilized, I don't know, way to partner, but also drives right into our next topic, I guess, which was, you know, influencers. Again, it's not always exactly like the point should not, or the goal should not always be just to drive sales. It can also be to like create content, which everyone is
Yes.
dying for content right now. Like I don't know any company that doesn't need more content for less money. You know what I mean? Like, and I think you see a lot of big companies struggling with this right now. In the sense that like traditional media was so expensive to create content, because they were creating it on such a high level, and like the production was insane, and you know they're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to get not a handful but like 100 pictures, right? And that's because those pictures were going on billboards and they were being used over and over again. And I think one thing companies have to remember now is that if you're doing creating content that's just for Instagram, it doesn't have to be like super high quality magazine level, billboard level photos. Like, you know, you can find someone who takes great photos on their iPhone even, and use those photos, because it's only going to be people seeing it in a small box. Like not
Mhm.
everything has to be like this 4,000 by 4,000 pixel photo that like can, you know, though I mean iPhone photos are damn near that now anyway, but yeah, user generated content I think is a great way to utilize, excuse me, utilize smaller influencers to get content created that you want for your company at like a much lower cost than a good photographer would charge you.
Yeah, it's the best way to start building your own content, whether or not you have user generated content to begin with. We have so many small, medium, large brands that reach out that want to do these giant photo shoots. And oftentimes we recommend working with influencers because you can get the variety of content you want. You
Hmm.
can pick people who are on brand, and then you can easily either work with them in trade for product or you can buy out the rights to their photos. There are so many different options. And then you're not spending thousands of dollars on a shoot
Right.
that really depicts like one to maybe three different scenes. You can get 20 different settings
Right.
for literally a fraction of the price.
And you have, yeah, this variety of content that you're able to use over and over again, especially, you know, if you're talking about making a real campaign and making sure that they're shooting evergreen content. So it's not just like a holiday one, or maybe you do holiday, you know, if that's the content you need. But if you make sure that people are shooting evergreen content, I mean, that's literally what it is. It can last forever, more or less. And so you can use it for like years. I mean, we have photo shoots that we've used over and over and over
Yeah.
again that never get stale, because like we purposely made sure that they were usable.
Hmm.
And so yeah, I think user generated content is a huge way, like you were saying, you know, get 10 smaller micro influencers um to give you like 10 to 20 photos each. And I don't know, you know, again, depending on what it is, but it doesn't even have to be that it like goes live on their social channels. Like maybe they do one post, but then they deliver 20 pictures. Like that's hugely valuable. I mean, that's your content for a month basically, right? Like 20 photos plus, you know, some overlays.
At least you could probably stretch that for 2, 3 months.
Right, exactly, if you're not posting every day.
And then
um
you're still driving awareness. And especially the more that you work consistently with the influencers who are on brand for you, you're now starting to drive purchase and conversion.
Totally. Yeah, that's like one of the ways we see overlooked, I think, often when working with influencers, is the user generated content. Like that content is so, or can be so expensive. And it's is hard to create. And so if you can find ways for other people to help you create it. And then another thing I think with that, like you can find different ways to work with them, newer or younger influencers that with smaller followings might need, I know, this was something Jen came up with and I always thought it was so smart. They might need like a testimonial for their media kit. Like there are different ways to pay people, quote unquote, or like add value that, or, it's not taking advantage of people. It's just figuring out like what they need, because your testimonial could help them land their next $1,000 brand deal.
Right.
Especially if you're a small company, if you're a larger company, I don't think it's fair to just take advantage of people and like, I don't know, like scrape them for, try to like squeeze them for all they're worth. But I do think smaller companies, figure out what you can offer and use that. And then the third thing that influencers are great at is driving sales.
But this takes time.
Yes, it can. And again, goes back to like making sure that you have the right people.
I will never forget, I will not name the company. I worked with a smaller company because I genuinely liked what they were offering. They paid me peanuts, which is fine. I went over and above so that they could get what they needed. And instead of just creating a post, I actually created a handful of photos and some more in-depth content. I won't even describe the content because I don't want anyone to be able to find it. But I really went over and above, and I had shared it with them. And she was like, oh gosh, I'm just a little bit bummed about the results. I only got 2 orders off of one post, which is like
huge. If you like, because that also generally means that was just what she tracked. And that was just like what she tracked within the week. So if you converted like 2 orders for a small business in one day, then that probably means that overall you probably converted a lot more. But even so, that is pretty good.
And I was like, I paid for myself.
Yeah, right, exactly. Which is
like, the ROI is there. I paid for myself.
they broke even, if not more, on you.
But yeah, I don't know. Anyways, I always think about that. So because oftentimes people think, well, I've launched a campaign, so I must get X sales from it. And the fact is you might, but we often encourage our clients, particularly when they are starting out with influencers, to lean more towards a metric that is not as sales focused, because that is the hardest to track, and it is the hardest for influencers to achieve, because there's an art and a science to these campaigns. Even some of the best work sometimes doesn't land.
Yep.
And you can't guarantee it. However, as you work with someone over time, working with an influencer who has performed well for you in terms of awareness and user generated content can then start to grow into more and more campaigns with you, which will grow into more and more purchase and sales.
Right. And I completely agree with everything you're saying. And I think that's another thing. It's like, no matter what, all advertising marketing is there's always a bit of a gamble. Generally, like it's very hard to guarantee things. But I do think that like there are certain people that will also be honest with you. Of like, if you say like, hey, I want to sell X amount of product or whatever it is, they'll let you know if like they can or what it will take to do that. You know what I mean? I think like generally, and I don't know if you feel the same way about your metrics, but like if someone said, I want to sell 5 units of something or whatever, one, I'd look at the product and I could kind of tell you like, is it going to resonate with my audience? Do these things likely convert? Most influencers have either like reward style or shop style or part of some affiliate program where they're pretty well aware of like what kind of things convert. Every once in a while you get like a weird wild card, but like, if there's certain things that I know that I could convert and I could sell, especially if I believed in them, but I also would know what that would take. And so it'd be like, okay, I'm not going to be able to sell 5 of these with one post, but I might, if you're willing to invest a little bit more, someone might be able to guarantee, or you could like, I know that I put something on my stories 3 times. that it will sell
Yeah.
at a much higher rate than like the first time, you know, if I talk about it in the right way and whatever. And so I think if you talk to your influencers, they can kind of like let you know. Most people are not going to be like, yeah, I can guarantee 100 units sold and, you know, in
Right.
such and such time. Or if they can, they're making a ton of money. But yeah, like they can tell you. And I think most good influencers are pretty honest about like what they can, like what their ROI is going to be. You know, some people have huge reach, but their conversion isn't as good or like immediate conversion. And some people just sell. Like some people just like have great conversion. So I think that that's an important part about it is like if your goal is to drive sales, one, be realistic about a timeline. Two, I think like when you're partnering with people, know that it'll probably be a partnership because people have to generally see things. I think Carly, she's kind of like an old school blogger influencer. She's literally at Carly on Instagram. But she said like one of her best selling products once, like it took people like an average of like 6 to 8 times to see it, to actually like buy it. And it was like a pair of $200 shoes. So it was good. And they sold well for her, but it wasn't immediately. And she'd been working with this brand for years and like it finally paid off, but it's not always going to be this immediate, you know, quick grab thing.
Yeah, but I also like to build off of that. I love working closely with brands. Like Hungry Planet is another collaboration I did recently where we collaborated on the entire campaign. Like we talked about what the goals were for the brand and the type of content that they're building. And they were open and honest with me about what they were looking to build. And so I designed a campaign that would deliver on that.
Right.
And we actually structured things in a certain way so that it would continue to build over time.
Totally.
And they were aware of that too. And then they were pleased with the results.
I think that's so smart and actually goes right into, you know, if we wanted to tell people, like, if they wanted to get started, like, what are the steps they take? And the number one thing I had written down was figuring out your goals. And I think that that's like a big thing. And where people get disappointed or let down in influencer campaigns is like, because they don't have goals. They're just like,
well, and I'm always the fun sponge because you got to pick one. You don't get to pick all three. Clients love me because I feel like Jesse's always like got these amazing ideas and she gets everybody all hyped up. And then I'm like, you get one.
Jen's like the fun mom at the amusement park. You can pick one scoop of ice cream. Yeah, but no, I think that that's a big thing. You know, we generally, when we talk to clients who have been like disappointed in influencer marketing, they're like, yeah, I tried it, didn't work. I think one of the, what we always hear is that like, they didn't have a goal for the campaign, that they thought that someone was going to come in and like, because they had 100,000 followers, they would sell out a whole collection. That doesn't happen, or very rarely does that happen.
Well, not only did they not have a goal, they didn't share a goal with the influencer.
Totally, which is, I mean, a lose-lose. Like,
yeah, so like I always recommend to people as well, or when a brand reaches out, I always say, what is the goal of your campaign? Because based on what the goal of the campaign is, will dictate the type of creative.
Totally. And I think that with that, people, you know, good influencers know their audiences, and the reason influencer marketing can be so effective is because it feels so authentic and real, and it feels like oftentimes a friend is recommending something to you. And I think that good influencers, you got to give them like some, you tell them that your goal, and then they can tell you how they can achieve that if they can. You know, if they're confident that they can tell you like, this is the best way to do something. And sometimes that like means an activation on Instagram, but sometimes they might say, actually, I think that this would perform a lot better on Pinterest, or actually, I think to get to where you want to go, like I could charge you a little bit more and do a blog post and like have a much bigger impact. Influencers are often very business savvy because they're running their own businesses and their businesses themselves. And so they're very like in tune with what the people want, what their people want. Like people follow them for a reason, and a good influencer at this point, you know, won't take on a campaign that like doesn't align with their brand, like, and their values, and like what they, you know. And so if they do think your brand aligns, then you need to also like allow them to sell it, like sell it the way that they need to.
One of my favorites, she's a smaller influencer like we are, is Katie Cassman, because she only takes on brands that she's really passionate about. And I know this from not only following her, being friends with her, but then hiring her for campaigns.
Yeah.
When she likes the brand, she continues to share over and over again.
And there have been brands that we've thought she would be a good fit for, and she said no to.
Exactly.
Which I think is like the hallmark of a good influencer. She's like, that's not, and again, it's like, I think we're pretty good at what we do. And you know, we pick the people that we think are best, but it's your job as an influencer, or their job as an influencer, to say, yeah, that's like not resonating with me, or like, even when it feels like, you know, you could somehow create a story around it. Like she said no, and I agree. I think Katie Cassman is a fantastic example of someone who we've worked with that we know is just like very authentic, and that's why her following trusts her and loves her. Number two, I've started out on a small scale. You know, I think that oftentimes people like smaller brands get like inundated with requests from influencers that are like throwing these impressive stats at them, like, I have 50,000 followers and I'll send this out to them and yada yada. And it's like, then they pay them $1,000 to do something and get absolutely nothing out of it, which is just like my biggest pet peeve, because like I don't know, it just feels so salesy and wrong, and like it feels like you're taking advantage of the business.
Well, and the other thing that goes along with that is I actually recommend trying to run a campaign with smaller influencers instead of just sending things out on a one-on-one basis. Because if you're doing a campaign, then you're able to more closely track everything. Like we did this, we won't name the brand, but we did it recently within the Marketing Greenhouse. We ran their first influencer campaign, picked 12 different influencers that they worked with. We intentionally worked with different size influencers. And then we were able to test and see what worked for that brand so that they could capitalize on it and do it again. And it made it easier because they do get requests all the time to fulfill product, which you can send out. It's just harder to keep track of. So by turning it into a campaign, you can make it more efficient and pull everyone together and then track to see what works. And you're still testing on a smaller scale, but you're doing it in a more effective way.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, that's, yeah. I have nothing else to add there. And then third one is, and we've talked about this, and it's kind of like niching down into like, it goes along with staying on, like starting small, like starting within a specific location or during a specific time period. We are big fans. I think holiday is a great time to launch something, you know, and try something out, because you know, obviously it's a huge buying season. And I also think that there are a lot of people willing to work with smaller brands, because a lot of times like you have all these gift guides that are like overlapping. It's the same thing. So people are looking for things that are new and interesting and different. But yeah, I think like holiday is a great time going into Q4 to like maybe start testing out influencer marketing and testing out campaigns, and running one. And Jen and I were talking about this the other day. I think one of the most like underutilized, I guess, like, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. Using multiple influencers in one city, like doing local campaigns.
Amplify,
right? Even if it's not the city you're in, like it doesn't have to just be people you know, but it allows it to, like, a lot of people in certain cities follow a lot of influencers in those cities because they're like looking for restaurant recommendations or whatever else it is, just because, you know, it's close by, it's local. And so I think especially during the holidays, that's a great time to kind of like, if you're trying to start small, look for multiple people in a certain city and overlap those so that you have your campaign hitting like the same audience multiple times, and then hopefully higher conversion because you have this awareness that's driving up very quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, trying to figure out how you can best minimize the variables or minimize the variables.
Yeah.
It would just be so nice if there was a way to help so many people.
Well, luckily, Jen and I have put together, so we're actually building a course around influencer marketing, and how to launch it and how to, do a full campaign and everything. But to start, we're actually going to launch right in time for you to get ready for Q4 if you're interested. A group, I don't know what we're calling it, like a mastermind of businesses where we're gonna we I think have 2 spots left. It's going to be a group of 4, and we're going to allow the businesses to
So we're very excited about this program because we'll be taking a small group of people and guiding them through a 4-step process that gets to their strategic influencer roadmap. And one of our specialties with the Marketing Greenhouse that I am most proud of is that we always create actionable strategies. Our goal is that every single client knows the next 3 steps when they leave us so that they're ready to keep running the ball forward. Because the worst thing would be if we give you a really pretty piece of paper and you can't do anything with it, in my opinion. So we've built this program to where we can take a small group through the information. People can collaborate on one another's ideas, and then we build out a campaign that's customized to each company together.
Yeah.
And Jessie is the queen of holiday, both personally and professionally.
I love everything holiday, and I also love, I think small businesses, if they're set up correctly, can capitalize on holiday in like such a crazy way. It's like we helped some businesses last year.
So fun.
With holiday strategies. Yeah, I think that's the other part about it. It's like just so much fun and it's so festive, but it's also like so lucrative. I'm like, if you're a small business that's not taking advantage of the holiday season, you are just missing out on so much money.
Yes.
And like, there's nothing I hate more than to see small businesses miss out on huge opportunities.
Yeah, nothing makes me happier than when it rains for a small business.
Totally.
And you're like Krista Kringle. That's going to be your new nickname, is Krista Kringle.
Yeah, so anyway, we would love for you to join us so that we can make it rain on your holiday this year. We will link everything you need to know for the show notes, and we'll also obviously keep everyone posted on the course as we get that rolled out this fall.
Yeah, cat's out of the bag on the course.
Yeah, I guess so. I didn't mean to, just throw that out, but yeah, it'll be
okay.
Really
I always, the advice we always give people is just get started before you're ready anyways, because you'll be fixing things no matter what. Yeah. So we're proof of it.
Yeah, so if you would like to also keep up with everything that we are doing, you can join our email list. I will also put that in the show notes, a link to join. Jen, where can everyone find you if they're looking?
I'm at jen.nay on Instagram.
Naye. Nay.
That's right. Jen Nay. Like the Forrest Gump movie. Jen A.
What?
Jen.
Oh, that's funny. I was like, what are you talking about?
I've gotten that my whole life. Everyone's always like, oh, like, have you seen Forrest Gump? I'm like, oh, I've never heard that one before.
Everyone sings Jesse's Girl to me. I'm like, what's that song? Like, yeah, I know.
Where can they find you, Jessie?
They can find me. My Instagram is Jessie B. Bernhardt. BERNHARD as in dog, T as in Tom. I was just complaining to Jen. We both married into long last names. And so I have to spell it out every time. So Jessie B. Bernhardt on Instagram.
That's why I don't use mine.
I know. You're smart. I should just... Anyway.
I love you, Matt, but I'm not using my name on my social handle.
And then my blog is jessiebarnesbernhardt.com. What's your blog?
Jennay.com.
Yeah.
Everybody misspells Herman, so I can't use it.
Yeah, the double R, double N is very
Yeah.
confusing in Herman. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, until next week, reach out with any questions.
Thanks for listening.
Always available via DM as well. So follow the marketing. Oh, yes. And follow the Marketing Greenhouse. I'm like, I've got to get better at these shout outs. Follow the Marketing Greenhouse. It's at the Marketing Greenhouse on Instagram. Yeah. All right, cool. We'll see you next week.